This is a 2002 Chevy Malibu. I found videos that show how to change the axle seal on the passenger or right side of a 4T40E transmission. This side, when you pull the axle out, there's a stub shaft that comes out with it down there. And the seal is much easier to change on that side. But I haven't found one for the more difficult left side or driver's side, which when you pull the axle, here it is, does not have a stub shaft. Now for those of you who don't know, here's what the seal looks like. There's a seal that's driven in there. Okay, and then there's this cup that's pressed onto this shaft. On the other side, this comes out with the axle. This will pull out with it, and it's only a few inches long. It's called a stub shaft. This shaft is much longer and goes deeper into the transmission. The tool to get this pulled off of here is about 200 bucks if you want to buy one. So I'm going to try something different, see if it works, and in the meantime make a video on it. So what'll happen is the first thing I'm going to do is get this seal pulled out of there. Then I'm going to use a $20 power steering puller, modify it a little with a grinder so I can reach in and pull this out. Once I get that out, my plan is to drive this new one in first and then use a 1-inch socket and drive this in onto the shaft at the proper depth. This seal is pretty bad. It was leaking terrible. You can see that it looks like this is actually out a little bit. Like somebody tried to change it maybe, and that might be a replacement, and they got it in there crooked. Well, that didn't work. I failed to mention the very first thing I did before I pulled the axle out, which there's many videos on that, so I'm not covering it, is I used about a full can of brake cleaner and sprayed around this whole area because it was just caked with grease and sand and contaminants I did not want to get into the transmission. So I sprayed the area down, caught it in a big tub underneath. It's disgusting. And now what I've just done is with a couple of mechanics picks and an X-Acto knife and a hemostats, I pulled the rubber part out. You can see that was split. I didn't cut that. And the spring, I got those pulled out from around that seal. That's going to make it easier to get a tool in there and try and yank that seal out, which is next. All right, we'll see if this will do it. It's a seal puller. I don't know if I can get in there or not. It doesn't help because I don't know about the rest of you, but I constantly fight my light source when I'm doing this. I got the seal out, and it was out a little on this side. I was able to beat on it a little with a chisel and deform one side, and then I went back in there and kept prying with my seal remover and got it to pop out. It was kind of a pain, but once I got it to move, it came out pretty well, pretty easy. So the outer seal is out. Now here's my idea for pulling that, what I call the cup off. This is a power steering puller. You can buy one for 20 bucks. And this side's unmodified. This side I've already modified. I used a grinder to take some material off the back and thin it up. And I ground this out just a little bit more here and cleaned that up. so that it will now fit in behind that cup. So I'll do the same to the other half. And as you can see from the new one, it should fit in nicely behind there and allow me to pull that out. Okay, I got both sides of that puller ground down so they fit in there. Got it set up. Before you can pull that out, there's a groove right there in the shaft with a snap ring on it. I had to pry that off with a little screwdriver and a needle nose pliers. It's moving. Here it comes. Boom. You can see, yeah, look at the groove that's wore in that.
Wow.
That is absolutely trashed. Alright. The seals are all out. I've cleaned it up in there as best I could. Looks pretty good. Time to put the seals in. So what I've got is a great big socket I'm going to use, and I'll drive it in there, and then we'll put the inner one. Alright, that seal is driven in. It wasn't exactly easy to get it started straight and get it in there. There's limited room to swing a hammer under here, but I got it. Now I'm going to drive this, what I would call a cup, onto the shaft. And the first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of, just a little light layer of grease around the outside of this so it slides through that seal nicely. And I have a 1-inch 12-point socket that does fit over that shaft. So I'm going to use that as my tool to drive this in. All right, I've driven that in. Now I got to put the snap ring back on. There's a new one that came in the seal kit, and reinstall the axle. This, I did some pre-measuring before I drove this in, and I've determined that if the very outer lip of this cup is offset back in around 5/16 of an inch from the face of the shaft, that's about the depth you want to be. And in driving it, I'm not so sure it didn't bottom out in there, and it won't go in any further anyway, because I kind of came to a dead stop and then measured, and sure enough it's right around 5/16 of an inch. There it is. New seal. I hope it works good. After I get this back together, I'll go over topping off the fluid level on this thing. Okay, the seal on the other side had a slight leak to it, nowhere near what the left side was. So I went to change this, and as you see, the stub shaft stayed in the transaxle and did not come out with the half shaft. So I'm going to have to just go through the same procedure on this side and pull the seals out and replace them just the same way I did on the left side. Alright, I've got the axle seals replaced on both sides. This side's completely put back together. This side, I have wood blocks under the frame so that the car is sitting at the same height it would with the wheel on, although I have the wheel off. This is because that's necessary to properly fill the transmission. The vehicle should be sitting as close to normal ride height as possible. So what I did was I put both wheels on let it down on the ground, and then measured my wheel well. With the wheel on, it's 28 1/4 inches. With my wood blocks, I'm at just over 28, close enough. There's no dipstick on these. There's only a fill on top. What you do is, there's a plug under here you need to remove. And you fill it until it starts running out of the plug hole. Once it does, it's full. The plug is hard to get at and hard to see. Let's see. That angle isn't gonna work. The plug is right. Gotta turn it upside down. Stand on your head. It's right there. Okay. So what you want to do is start it, let it run for 10 or 15 minutes to warm up, run it through all the gears while it's still running, pull the plug out, and obviously it's not going to run out because I lost some fluid when I pulled the axle seal out, and it lost fluid when it was blowing it out of the ripped seal. And then add fluid until it starts pouring out that hole. The first thing you want to do is get down under here and take your fill cap off while the engine's cold. You can get to it. It's not hard, but if the engine's hot, you ain't getting to it. Okay, that's off. It's right there. Now what I'll have to do is set up a long funnel to get down in there and get ready to do this. Okay, there I got a funnel going down in there with a hose to get to the filler. Dump 1.5 quarts in before started running out. As you can see, probably put in about quarter better too much. That's okay, I'll just let it run out now till it quits. Put the plug in and should be good to go. Just a word of warning, don't pull the plug until you start the engine. The engine has to be running or you're going to be dumping fluid out you don't need. There we go. Plug's back in. Car shut off. Just got to jack it up, put the wheel on, and wait for this baby to cool down so I can get my hand back under there and put the transmission fill cap. It also serves as a vent. It's a vent cap and fill cap. But I ain't sticking my hand down there now. I'll take the skin off on the exhaust. I'd say that it's not a very easy job. It kind of sucks. The hardest part was getting that outer seal pried out and driven back in. The inner seal, which I had to modify the tool for, actually was very easy to get out with the tool and to get back in with a 1-inch 12-point socket, deep 1-inch 12-point socket. All right, I hope I helped somebody out. Have a good day.